everybody, and thanks for coming to our very first ever Rooted and Ready little learning moment. This is for the month of February, and we are so excited to get kicked off. And this month, we're going to be talking about donor intent, which I know that sounds really formal and a little bit scary, but it really just comes down to trust. When donors trust us, they give. And then when communities trust us, our community foundations grow. So I'm so happy to be joined by Jessica, our Executive Vice President of Philanthropy, who works with donors and donor intent every single day. Jessica, thank you so much for agreeing to help me with this and
Yeah.
to share with our LCFs what is really behind donor intent. So what are we actually talking about when we talk about donor intent?
So donor intent is really like bird's eye. It is an expression of the donor's values, of what they care about, and what their philanthropic mission is. And it stems from the principle that we are the agent of the philanthropist. As the community foundation, it is our job to represent that donor to the best of our ability in an effort to, you know, like as our mission says at MCF, create a culture of giving.
Yeah, awesome. So it's really not, just about those dollars. It's about
Right.
relationships, our culture. Can you give me just a really quick example of what that donor intent might be like in a local community foundation?
Absolutely. I can think of lots of examples. I'll try to just pick one. The first one where we see it most is with scholarships, because communities change and educational priorities change, and we need to be willing to be nimble enough to pay attention to those things to help donors set up their goals in a way that we know we can help them meet them long after all of us are gone. Will it be possible? Will there still be a need for flute players in Cut Bank? Um, or do we need to help the donor see into the future and also help them do the thing that they care about most? I think a real life example I think it was probably the first one I ever experienced, where we were like, oh no, what do we do? A senior center in rural Montana closed, and we had a fund that the donor set up specifically for that senior center. And we had to work on finding a way to continue to meet that donor's intent after that senior center had closed.
That's awesome. Wow, that's so impactful. You just don't really think about how big that can be down the road. So,
Yeah.
we're talking about like why does this matter? Why does all of this matter to our community foundation?
Okay. So, first of all, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not here to give legal advice. But I will say that donor intent, while it's a moral issue, it is also a legal issue. Honoring and respecting the choices of donors and preserving their integrity and their legacy is incredibly important. When their intent is ignored, it violates trust, it erodes our credibility as community foundations, and it declines donors' giving. Why would any of us give to something that we do not trust? And
Absolutely.
and a thriving community and a philanthropic sector is rooted in trust, transparency, credibility. But also, Montana law requires that charities manage funds in line with the charitable purpose, the donor's original charitable purposes. And that law allows charities under certain circumstances to change the purpose, but it still has to do its very best job to ensure that original intent was met. And when we are no longer to meet intent, like with the senior center or a scholarship, we do research, we make plans, we present, we do what's called a variance procedure. And I think later on in your questions, I'll probably get to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jessica, can you talk to us a little bit about like how does all of this connect? How does donor intent connect to things like growing our endowment
Oh,
or
yeah.
planned giving?
Yes. So it's everything, because I think it goes back, like the importance of trust and credibility in the work that we're doing. sector depends upon it. Local communities depend upon it. If you can't be trusted to do what you say, if MCF can't be trusted to do what we say, why would anybody ever trust us with their legacy? Like the most important thing. And I think one of the other things is that research. So philanthropy is a peer-reviewed study, like a topic of study, and it's researched. And what we know is that when people make legacy gifts, their current giving increases by 75% or more.
Wow.
Yes.
That's huge.
So I know. So if they are giving a legacy gift because they trust you to do what you say because you know you can do it, then they're going to give you more in their lifetime. And then we also know that people like to keep up with their neighbors. And so when they hear their neighbors are doing it, they want to do it too, because generosity is contagious.
Oh, I love that. We should get t-shirts that say that.
We should get t-shirts that say that, and bumper stickers.
That's right. So, I mean, really, for our local community foundations, what are some simple ways that they can really protect that donor intent right from the very beginning?
Clear, honest conversations, an awareness, and checking and asking for help, whether it's from your board or volunteers or us at Montana Community Foundation. Like, can I really do this? When I am gone and I've won the lottery and moved somewhere tropical and someone else is here, can they ensure that they can do this? And is this even possible? And if it's not, having an honest conversation with the donor and saying, we can do this, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do this. So maybe we could noodle on ways to ensure that your legacy continues long after all of us are gone. Another thing is to ask good questions about what they really want to get done, because sometimes donors come in and they know they want a scholarship and they want it to be for a flute player, and that flute player has to graduate from a specific high school in a specific place, yada, yada, yada. And so what if we can find out at the end of the game what it is they want their impact to be, and then work backwards with them to maybe create a simpler opportunity. If we respond from a place of generosity and not scarcity, we will be able to meet donors more accurately where they want to be met. And we'll be able to also say, oh, we can't do that. We're just not the right place for you, but let me connect you with another organization that is. And then finally, having things in writing. At Montana Community Foundation, we use what we call gift agreements and fund agreements. And in those, we have what's called a Schedule A that outlines the donor's intent for the gift, the things that they feel are absolutes that they want to see happen, and the things that are maybe more preferences. And then we make sure we sign that, the donor signs that, and we follow up with them once a year, once every 2 years, to check and make sure, like, is there anything that's changed? They get to make those changes, and we want to be somebody that can make those changes with them. And then we save it in the place where after we're all gone, someone will be able to find it. Because that's one of the challenges is donor intent often doesn't get or it gets missed or violated because of leadership changes or volunteer changes or board changes, and the communication gets lost and the donor's intent gets lost also.
Sure. So just thinking along that line of, the very first thing that my brain goes to is like, what about old funds where maybe we don't know, and it could be because of that institutional knowledge that changed, but what do we do then?
So when if a donor has, if they're still alive, it's really easy because we can go to them and ask them. If they have a successor advisor that they've put in place, like a friend or grandchild, we can go to them. But if both of those things are gone and the donor has passed away, we have to go back to our records. We need to do research. We need to look at correspondences with the donor. We need to find the fund agreements that existed. And then we need to identify how we can best meet what we have determined was the donor's original intent. And then from there, we go through what's called a variance procedure, which goes back to the legal part of our conversation earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And we take that fund that was for the senior center in a rural Montana town, and we say, okay, well, we can't, there is no senior center there, and there's no senior center like in the surrounding counties, but there is a mobile senior support service that comes in and does things for senior citizens on a regular basis. And so we could move the fund to support that particular county in the work that that organization is doing. And so we follow up, we make sure that that's even doable. We present that option to our board as a variance to be a possible variance to be approved. Once the board approves it, it goes in a letter as a request to the Montana Attorney General's office, and they review it. Sometimes they follow up with questions. Sometimes they just send their approval, and then we make the changes and we save those changes in our records.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, it's such a good, like a nice reminder, I think, that
Yeah.
you don't have to do this yourself, that there's lots of support because
Yep.
it is such a big process. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. So Jessica, in kind of wrapping up, I just want to ask, if somebody were to take one thing away from today, what would it be?
Honoring donor intent is honoring donors and honoring trust. Trust with the board, trust with donors, trust with our whole community. And I think reflecting on responding and working from a place of generosity in each of our communities rather than a place of scarcity. Oh, and then I have one more because I can't help myself. Asking for help. Like,
Yeah. Yes.
Montana Community Foundation exists to be a resource, and we can all use help. None of us have it all figured out, and we have this opportunity to be generous with the wisdom or the experience we have and to help each other, because in doing that, we're going to help the whole state.
That's so awesome. And I love that, and just really reflecting on how donor intent just builds up and builds our
Yeah.
communities, and honoring that builds our community foundation. So I love this. Thank you so much, Jessica. I
Thank you for
appreciate
having me.
your wisdom and your knowledge and being able to share with our community foundations. And for all of my LCF friends, we will do this again multiple times this year. You'll have a learning opportunity of some sort every month. So keep an eye out, and thanks so much.
Thank you.